Okay, and we're going to walk around the farm with Margie as she talks about her program and what she's done.
I started, this farm got built in between 2005, property was bought in 2004 as cornfields, about 70 acres. Built from scratch. I brought all my previous years, where I had worked and lived and competed or whatever, to this place. I always had wanted a place of my own. So it was an interesting blank piece of paper. I knew I wanted a boarding and training facility as well as a place to have competitions. And it's worked out. You always have, not regrets, but wish I had done this or that, but I had a finite number of pennies, so I did what I could, and I'm happy with it. The surprising thing is that my intent originally was just to have low-key schooling shows, but the competitions became very successful, and I now run 2 large recognized horse trials on the property and find myself a little bit with not enough land. But I was surprised they became such a big part of my program and my budget, to be honest. So that's been a good thing that was different. I used Morton Buildings after looking around and talking to people, and I couldn't be happier with them. Not only as buildings, but the company was fantastic, the Cobleskill office, and his name is escaping me, but I can see him now. Kevin Cahey was a fantastic salesman, really, really, really good to work with because I was fussy. Things I wish I had more of was turnout. I ran out of money for fencing, so we make do with what we have. Big deal on turnout. The design of my barn was very much about ventilation. Lots of airspace, windows. I do not store hay in the barn for fire insurance. Trying to think what else.
How many stalls?
There's 12 stalls in this barn. And then I do have an annex barn over the hill. That was a separate piece of property that belonged to the gentleman I bought the property from. And then sadly he passed away and his family owned it. 5-stall barn, 2 big paddocks, a big storage building, a rented mobile home, 20 acres. I couldn't afford to buy it when they decided to sell, but very luckily 3 boarders and myself got together, created an ELSA LC, so we now own that property. So I have 5 stalls over there and some turnout sheds. So I feed generally anywhere from 15 to 20 horses. Right now I'm feeding 19. 3 sadly, which are my own, 2 retired and 1 school horse. So, but you can't let go of your good buddies. The indoor is, the building is 180 by 200. There's a 12-foot space and we'll see it inside for a grooming stall and storage and whatnot. We use Gromax for our manure removal, the dumpster there. And it works out perfectly for us because I am not a fan of spreading sawdust manure on the fields because of the weeds, and it sours you have to lime so much.
Right.
And they now, interestingly enough, will take cardboard. And it composts in there, so that helps. Because my waste management will stop taking I was putting paper bags and cardboard, they're not taking it anymore, which is odd. Anyway, there's always something.
Yeah, that's right. Always have to adjust and adjust. You know.
Right. We do, it's primarily adult amateurs. I don't really have a school program. I don't do kids anymore. I can't say I don't do kids. I have teenagers that I teach, but I don't have like lesson ponies for beginners. I did that several years ago, decided I was done with that. Business-wise, that is a little bit not the best thing, because when you have kids, you're bringing new people into the sport. And when I did kids and beginners, 1 out of 10 would buy horse and board with me. So I'm a little bit cut your nose off to spite your face in some ways. But I'm generally full. This has been a tough time. The COVID thing, I am down in boarders. I'm very down in lesson income. Obviously, we were very lucky to hold our July horse trial. We were the first Area 1 horse trial to be held. Difficult, but we did it following all the COVID restrictions. Every single person here, every competitor, we only allowed 1 extra person per rider to come in, no spectators, all the things that have to happen. And everybody was great about their masks and the social distancing, and everything was done electronically online. There were a lot of changes, cost a lot of money. I didn't go in the red, but I wasn't very far in the black, but I'm glad I did it. Everyone was thrilled to have a competition to go to, and it was successful and all that. So
Yeah, I'd spoken to a few that came, and they were just so glad to have the opportunity.
get out.
You know,
Exactly.
yeah, and well, and then you had one canceled the year before due to the weather,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah.
So
Yep.
it was almost.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. Thank you.
We're gonna make you famous, though. Okay, so or make him famous. This is a superhero in a costume. Okay. Those blankets do help, don't they? The sheets.
Yeah. Major is Clyde something cross. I keep thinking it's there, but it's not. He is an unbelievably fantastic amateur horse. Jamie Callis is my primary rider, but his owner has been with me since, gosh, early 90s. This horse and that horse, but he is a saint. This wonderful horse. I've got a wonderful group of boarders, really, really good. So I built the outdoor to be large enough to have, I can put 3 just small dressage rings in there. Then obviously warm-up has to be somewhere else, but sometimes if I just have 2 arenas and we have warm-up, works out for the schooling areas.
He's never seen a horse before.
The fancy dressage horse is not supposed to run around, but of course he is.
Yeah.
So, that's another Regina Christo's horse. He's relatively new to her, but he's done Grand Prix and schoolmaster. He's a really nice guy, very sweet, but can be a little silly sometimes.
And then there's the side road, right, that we're kind of looking at, and you can enter from there for trailer parking.
That's my competition entrance, and I planned it that way, so people weren't coming in the farmyard so much. And that's our main parking field. And the property runs Woodward Road to the Thruway, Bunker Hill Road, and 32 is basically, I have a couple neighbors that have pieces for their houses, but it's pretty much the block.
Yeah.
And the Thruway's not a big problem. Sometimes when the wind's coming that way, you hear the traffic and you're kind of sorry that it's there, but it also made the property a little more affordable.
Right.
But it's all worked out really well. The cross country is all back that way. And this is very, very well drained soil. It's gravelly, and even when we had the horrible rain in 2000, was it 19? Yeah. Seems like so many years ago. It just couldn't hold the rain, but generally, even if we get a couple inches of rain the next day, you can ride in here, you can go outside and not make tracks. It drains quite well. But the flip side is when we have a drought, it's pretty freaking hard. So you always have to have one or the other.
Right.
So you can't have it all.
And it gives your clients a space if they want to hack around.
Yeah, they can.
A bit,
we always
you know.
we're so protective.
Yeah.
My cross-country builder, and he helps around the farm personnel, and he is so fussy and so protective. But he's right. Unfortunately, he's
Right.
always right.
Yeah.
But they can go around the edges, and so they can hack out. I'm a little landlocked. We're right next door to the Old Chatham Hunt country, but the way the roads are right here, it's not safe. The tractor trailer traffic has increased for whatever reason. I don't know if the Google thing can get them. They avoid the tolls and they come on the smaller roads to get to Chatham or something. And I don't care how good a horse you have, I won't do it, and I don't recommend my students do
Right.
it. But so we get in the trail and we go a mile down the road to the dirt roads, and then we go right on the handrail. So
Yeah.
but it's a pain in the neck. So it's too bad. I've had my horses in other places that you could just get on and go, which is especially if you want to do eventing, that's invaluable. So they're a little bit restricted that way, but we make do. So all good.
As your clients, they're mostly adults.
Oh,
Is that
yeah.
kind of a reputation, or do you kind of, as stalls open up, you just slowly
It just
add a new?
seems to have morphed into the group, and yes, there's a handful of ladies that I started teaching, and they stayed with me, and it's just become the atmosphere in the barn. But I have young adults. Jamie's here, and I have some college kids that started here when they were younger, and now I'm losing them to college. But and I have a young local gal that's come, that's just turned 15, so she's younger. But it is known as an adult amateur barn, and I'm probably the most expensive in the neighborhood. But we're well known for very, very good care. And so it's adult amateurs with discretionary income that are able to come here. And I don't just do straight board, because it's money in, money out, and the facility gets used, so it's a loss. So I do tack on a required $275 a month with the board of $950. And they use that for any mixture of lessons, training, shipping, anything I can do for them. They have to use that up. They pay for it if they don't. And they know that coming in. So everyone's been fine with it. I have a couple people just pay it and don't have lessons or don't do whatever. But I don't like people coming and just dumping their horse here and not paying attention to it or not being active. That's not the kind of barn I wanted. So it has worked. I have people, I have many inquiries, and as soon as I explain the arrangement, they're going, thank you. And so, but it's not, other places are close to me, but they don't have that requirement. Every barn has their own financial situation. Everybody is unique, so you just have to structure it for what works for you. And I still struggle, so it's like, gotta do what you gotta do.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but it's my 15th year, so I'm hanging on. I got another 5 years of my mortgage, so I'm hoping to hang in there. But this will be an interesting year. I was lucky enough, I applied for a small business disaster loan, and I got some money that got me out of the hole. So I just hope I can keep going to stay out of the hole. So, because every winter gets tough, and then my spring activities get me out of the hole, but that wasn't happening. So the hole kept getting bigger.
And I can't imagine if clients can't come visit their horse,
Right.
they're that keen to house it for the winter.
Yeah, and I was lucky, and I think it was very different with every barn and how people interpreted the guidelines, which were so slow to come out from New York State. And we kept going to, ag and markets and Farm Bureau, and there were different things. People, it was like, because in the beginning they said, no borders, no borders, no borders. But then they said, oh, but essential workers. I had 5 people that were working for me anyway that had horses here. So, and they were part of the riding team as well. Not team, but people that could ride horses. So I wasn't like left with 20 horses to care for myself. And other people were saying, oh my God, it's terrible. I can't have anybody here. But you could have, So I was comfortable saying you are an essential. I mean, I cut staff, no doubt about it. But they were essential, and we worked it out. We put on, right as soon as this whole thing hit, we got very serious, kept minimal people in the barn, had the staff come in, do stalls. They left, then a boarder at a time would come in when boarders were allowed to come in. Before that, Jamie and myself would ride the horses as many times as they wanted us to do it, and we were riding a lot.
Right.
So, because so we made it work. The horses kept going, because to us it was dangerous to not do them, So anyway, we made it work. Other people had problems, and I have a gal, actually the gal that's coming for the lesson, who's very involved with Farm Bureau and ag and markets, and so there were, you don't have to show this, but barns that would say, Susie Smith isn't doing it right. You got to call the cops on her, and we can't do it. Why should she be able to do it? It's like, oh, come on, people. Let's just,
Right.
get real and get through it.
And if you do kind of hide your head in the sand, then you.
Hey, Lena.
Hi. you're not prepared to, as things open up,
Right.
now you're not prepared.
Right.
You know,
right,
you can't
exactly.
capitalize on new activity if everything's unfit and
Yeah.
unschooled.
So you think it kind of, in a way, you've kind of settled out into a routine, but, and we have, but you just don't know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yet better, worse, better, yes, no. You know, the whole worry about a spike and, you know, the competitions in the southeast and south, they're not paying attention, and USCF is yelling at them and saying, look, you're going to. So we did not run preliminary in July because we just didn't have the money to get the course built over the winter. And but we are getting it together for the fall. But because we weren't USCF, because we didn't have prelim or just USCA, we really weren't under their thumb. But we, believe you me, used their guidelines.
Yeah.
You know. So
sure.
And we learned from the few events that started. Plantation was the first, then Werdaka had one, and our TD, Rick Caldwell, was TD at those, and so we got wealth of information from him beforehand about how to do things. But we were the first multi-day competition, and the other farms had one entrance. We had 3.
Uh-huh.
So more manpower, more.
Right.
How do we control it? Who has to do what? And I had to hire people to be greeters and temperature takers because none of the volunteers wanted to do it.
Uh-huh.
Now I had one volunteer do it. Now that we've been through it and realizing how it works and this was okay and that was okay, so I think that my normal volunteer crew will be a little bit more willing to do things. And they got through a horse trial in a little different format, you know, having the scribes be in the car next door, and I had one judge brought her daughter, so they scribed in the same car and all that stuff. So stuff can work out. It's not as, you know, there's a lot of people love the socialness of the events, but no crowds at the scoring board, no food tent, you know, no volunteer tent. I saved money in tents, but I had to pay for an office trailer for Erin, so that's washed.
Yeah.
So, but we discovered that was I mean, she should have one all the time, but it was like $1,000. It's like, oh, God. But I pay $900 for tents every year, so not a big difference. But
well, it's nice to lock her away where she's not getting people into her all the time. And yeah, I mean, never mind COVID, but just to do her job. Yeah.
And she loves the social part of the events, and it was cutting it. And she was good. They had a step up to a window, and she could open and close the window, and they had a fan and stuff inside. They actually could hook up to AC, but I didn't have the power. But so she was still able to chat with people and stuff, but safely, which was good. So.
Yeah. Great.
Anywho.
Okay. Oops.
So my adult amateurs are a mix of low-level dressage and low-level eventing. I have, and a couple like to fox hunt, and one or two just like to ride. And I mean, they'll do a little dressage and they just like to ride for fun, but they're interested and they're active and they do what they can do.
And how do you add clinics to the picture?
I have been a great fan of Eric Horgan's, and unfortunately he's in England, so we can't have him. But he would come like 4 times a year, and we've had different people. I have to always be a little careful because you can lose money in a heartbeat on clinics, especially dressage, because they cost so much, and you end up.
It's all privates and.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And but we had Jeremy Beal here last year, and he was wonderful. And he was new to here, and we had one planned with Michel Assoum. He's a French guy, that Regina Christo, who's on the USDF para committee, and she had leased a horse to a para years ago, and so she got involved, and he does regular dressage too, but she was really impressed with him, and so she had this clinic arranged, but then the COVID hit, so we haven't done him. And then we had interest in Tick Maynard, and we had him all set up for the spring, and then COVID hit, so he hasn't been. So we try to have, I don't like to overdo it. We've had Daniel Stewart, we've had Sarah Geike, Lisa Pearson, actually Karen O'Connor came in 15, I think. So I don't do a ton because I think it's confusing to people, and they've got to make money. So,
Right.
and I don't care if they make a ton, but I can't have a loss. So.
Well, sometimes it seems like people will prepare more, but if they're overspending on the clinic, they cut back afterwards. So, yeah. And it has to build on what they're already learning.
Right.
Not that it has to be the same, but yeah, it can be confusing.
Right.
I'm going to shut this off.